With JRA, it's never ending. You know, you've got somebody that's been there before, that's built their own business. You get a systemized way of acquiring clients, get a systemized way of acquiring employees, to retain the customers, to get new trucks, what kind of trucks to get, what kind of website you want, what kind of content you want to be posting. All I can say is that it's been a great investment so far. We doubled the sales in 2020 despite the pandemic, and we're scheduled to do it again this year as well.
Hey everybody, it is Tuesday, 12 noon Eastern time. That means it is time to talk a little junk on Let's Talk Junk, brought to you by me, Lee Godbold, and Junk Removal Authority, where we help junk removal business owners make more money and live a better life. All right, so you guys, most people have been really busy up to this point of the year. Now, some people might have slacked off a little. It's going to come back. We're going to be busy. A lot of people are very, very busy right now even. They haven't seen any sort of slowdown. So we're seeing some stuff kind of all over the place. What you have to always remember is if you are a little slow now, or if you are busy right now, in general, if you're a growing junk removal company, you're only going to get busier next year. So when March comes around next year, March 15th kicks off and you get through the next year, it's not uncommon for junk removal business owners that are doing the right things to grow 30, 40, 50, 150% even between years 1 and 2 and 2 and 3 and 3 and 4, and then just keep on growing from there. So you must have trucks ready and available. Truck chassis right now, it's a little of a question mark in terms of are there going to be enough to go around on these low cab Ford chassis or even the Ford F550 chassis. There's a chip shortage right now, no end in sight at the moment. Steel prices continue to skyrocket, so there's a lot of stuff going on that makes it very important. If you're going to need trucks next year, you go ahead and get orders and you say, hey, I want a truck by the end of February or whatever. Just had a customer up in the Northwest just placed an order on 6 trucks, said I just want it by the end of February. So go ahead and get your orders in. Check out junkremovaltrucksforsale.com. Be proactive rather than reactive. We get people all the time want a truck just a few weeks in the future. We'll get there. We'll have it eventually where we'll have trucks that can turn around in a few weeks. But right now, you got to be proactive rather than reactive. Get ready for next year, even before you get out of the busy season this year. If you do that, you're going to be a lot better off. All right, so today, what we're talking about today is when to raise your prices. So the price you charge, if you raise your price, everybody knows this, if you raise the price, it goes straight to your bottom line. It's 100% profit. It can be it makes a lot of people very nervous to raise prices. And you always want to pay attention to what occurs after you raise a price. But in all the years we've been doing this, we've raised prices probably twice a year on average with junk doctors in North Carolina. Never once have we actually seen any pushback, any reduction in business. If anything, we've just gotten busier. So when do we actually want to raise pricing? Well, to start with, if you go all the way back to when you're first starting your business, number one, you never, ever, ever want to establish the reputation of being the cheapest. Do not, speaking of being cheap, this pen is about done here, Matt. Let's see, do not be the cheapest. Under any circumstances, if your advertising pitch to stand apart from your competition is we charge less, then do not get in business. Scrap it until you figure out something else. Recently, I think last week, we talked about imitating the big guys. None of those big guys are out there talking about they're the cheapest. None of them. So do not be the cheapest. If you set the precedent that you're the cheapest out there, it is much harder to raise pricing because what has happened is you are appealing to individuals, to customers that simply want the cheapest provider. And as soon as you're no longer the cheapest provider, they take their foot and they kick you out. They no longer use your service. So all of that, we talk about all the time, the key thing with junk removal businesses is repeat business, is referral business, is reviews. The problem is if you have bad clients, in terms of repeat, they're only going to reuse you if you still stay cheap. They're only going to refer you to their cheap friends, and they're only going to leave reviews about how cheap you are. So all 3 R's, you're appealing to the completely wrong person. So don't set the precedent of being the cheapest. Is the very, very, very most important thing when you're first starting your business. So when you're first starting your business, one of the things that most everybody's going to do And we do this too. So when we're assisting our business package clients, the people going through the premier franchise alternative to start your business, grow your business as fast as possible with as least mistakes as possible, people that go through those business packages, we help them set pricing. One of the very first things we do, and in videos that we've shown in the past how we set pricing, is we do look at what competitors charge. So we get disposal fees in the area, we get an understanding of traffic, we want to understand what the fuel cost is going to be, but then we're going to jump on over and to Junk King's website, which has a pricing estimator on it. We're going to put the zip code in, and that's going to be our baseline. We know we're probably always going to set prices a little bit more than Junk King because they're pretty cheap. Or they advertise cheap anyway. The next thing we're going to do is we'll pick up the phone and we're going to call the Blue Man Group or Big Blue, whatever you want to call them. We can't say their name on here anymore. So the big guys, the big blue guys. You're going to pick you're going to pick up the phone, you're going to give them a call, and you're going to say, hey, my sister's in here. I got sisters all over the country. I call up their contact center all the time. Yeah, I'm looking to help my sister move out somewhere here. I've used you before back in North Carolina or in Alabama or wherever I'm located at that given point. And I say, you know, I know it's going to be about a full truckload, maybe 2 full truckloads. What's your full truckload rate? They don't want to give that to you at first, and they shouldn't. In our contact center, we don't want to just give out because most customers have no idea if it's a full load or not. So what you have to say is, listen, my sister is very, very price sensitive. She's on a limited budget right now. I know I've used you guys a bunch. I know it's just going to be a truckload or two, or 2 truckloads, whatever. What's your full load rate? And eventually they'll give it to you. You can base all of your pricing off that full load rate, and you can look back on, there's some YouTube videos we posted in the past on how to set your initial junk removal pricing, which is not the topic of today's show. That is going to give you the foundation. But what happens once you're already in business and you get to thinking about raising prices? And how often should you raise prices? Raise prices 1 to 2 times a year. So let's go ahead and establish that right from the beginning. 1 to 2 times a year is when you want to increase your pricing. You can charge more. All right, so we talked about your competitors. Eventually, after you've been in business a little while, don't worry about your competitors. So, well, you're probably thinking though, well, I have to worry about my competitors. If I charge a lot more than them, then my competitors are actually going to take business away from me. So this is only part of that statement. Don't worry about competitor pricing if you've got great reviews and you've got great professional branding. Put amazing branding. I love that word, amazing branding. And you advertise hard. I'm going to underline this. Especially Google Ads. Your search engine optimization ranking is high. Because what happens at that point, if you get up top, the only people that are ranking well on Google Ads consistently, as well as search engine optimization, are bigger players in your market. They're people that are actively spending money so they can rank well. Well, in order to have money to spend on advertising, in order to rank well, to get that advertising, you have to charge enough. There's got to be enough meat left on that bone from that job that you do to take a little meat off that bone and send it into advertising to bring in more bones. And that's what we want to do, is we want to bring in as many bones as possible. So you got to advertise hard. You have to have amazing branding. What is amazing branding? Amazing branding is you got to have a good looking truck. You got to have a great looking truck. Something that's going to be reliable, that's going to get you to customers same day, next day, fast. It's not going to break down on you. It's not going to piss off your team members because the air conditioning doesn't work. It's something that's very, very reliable. It looks good to your customers. Your guys show up, they're in uniform. They have a branded uniform on. I like the collared shirts. That's what we use. That's what a lot of your big players use. They use the collared shirts because they look great. You want a uniformed pants, whether it's a black pants or khaki pants, whatever. It's whatever your uniform is. Everybody needs to be in uniform. They need to be happy. They need to have a smile on your face, your team members. Super professional. We talked about it a week or two ago. It's more important to have a great presentation with nice people who are professional than it is to have the best possible people at moving and hauling junk. Customers don't see that. They can't observe that. You want to have the great presentation. So if you have that amazing brand and your website looks amazing, if you have all that going on for you, and you have, this is one of the most important right here. I'm going to go ahead and star this. This is absolutely, to not worry about competitive pricing, that right there is extremely important. You have amazing reviews. So you've gotten in there, you've done a lot of work. People are giving you 5-star reviews on Google, maybe on Yelp if you're in California or someplace that actually cares about Yelp, or Facebook ratings. You know, wherever you're getting your work, you need to have a really, really good reputation. So great reviews, and then at that point, competitive pricing ceases to matter as much. Now you're the leader. You're the one people are paying attention to once you've actually received this point. So you've got to work on getting those amazing reviews and hitting these 3 things right here on a consistent basis. So now, what are you analyzing? What tells you when it's time to raise prices? And guys, if you have any questions at all, just post them in the comments. Love to get to them. We got Mad Matt Mary back there running the show. He will forward any comments, questions, whatever over to me, and I'll make my way through them. Woo! How do you know? How do you know when to raise pricing? All right, well, the very first thing we do is you got to know where you are to know where you need to get to. So we need our financial reports, and the P&L statement is the first thing that we're going to look into, your profit and loss statement. If you do not have at least a monthly profit and loss statement coming over to you that's accurate and that has the expense percentages, so the percentage of income each expense is, then you need to get on that immediately. Immediately. There's no decision. You can't make any decisions at all with your business if you don't know how much money you're actually making. And it's not just a matter of my bank account, how much has my bank account grown? That's a very incomplete picture. You need a good P&L statement to make any decisions here. And then what are the numbers you're going to be looking at? You're going to be looking at payroll cost. You're going to be looking at disposal cost. One of the big ones right now is fuel. We'll be looking at fuel cost. So payroll, disposal, fuel. I'll sort of throw advertising in here a little bit. It's still important. It's typically the 4th thing we would look at. If you're in a market that's getting more competitive, then your advertising costs are going to go up, your customer acquisition cost goes up, and you're going to need to raise pricing in order to pay more to obtain that customer. So payroll costs, one of the very first things also on payroll is I'll break out overtime. So break out overtime, put OT there. You want to see this somewhere in your year 1 when you're first getting started. This is including paying you. We tell everybody, when you first start a business, set yourself up on a regular draw or payment or salary or hourly pay as you would pay any other truck team member right from the start. So right here, this is going to be somewhere in year 1, probably about 25%. Now in your first few months, you might see 30% on this number, somewhere around 25%. Year 2 on after, or especially year 3 on after, let's say year 3. Year 3 on out, we'd like to see this number somewhere between about 20 to 23%. Obviously, lower is better. We have seen some people get this number beneath 20%, but it can be difficult to do, especially in a tight job market where we're having to pay more to get people. We'll get to a question in just one moment. Disposal fees, on average, most places in the country we see between 8 to 12%. I've heard of a few people at 6 or 7, but on average you're going to see 8 to 12. Your 12% is generally going to come into play if you have a very high minimum at your landfill. So Denver is an example. Denver, Colorado, until you've been able to negotiate with your landfills, it's like 80 some dollars a ton, and there's a 1 ton minimum. Some areas of the country are $65 a ton with a 2 ton minimum. So your disposal fees are going to be much higher there. You're going to have to charge more as well, but your percentages are going to be higher on disposal. Fuel costs. This is the one right now that has actually prompted this episode, this topic, because over the last handful of months, the fuel cost has been going way, way, way up. So we normally like seeing this number somewhere between 5 to 7%. Now, when fuel costs went way low, at times we'd even see this. Matter of fact, this is more like 4 to 7. We've seen fuel costs as low as 4%. So 4 to 7% is normally kind of your target there on fuel costs. And then on advertising, if you're doing it the JRA way, the way that's allowing people to get $200,000-300,000 in their first year. One guy even got almost $400,000 in his very first year in operation. Now, that's not everybody. That's not to be expected all the time. Different markets, different operators play an effect. But it's one of the things that they really did to get these huge numbers right off the start. Bay Hauling's been in business a while. He was the testimonial there at the beginning. He's been in business a while, but has really accelerated a lot because of some of this aggressive advertising he's been doing. All right, so year one, we like seeing stabilized around 25%. 2, something around 20%. And then 3, on out in the neighborhood of 15%. Unless you're going to be very, very, very aggressive. You got a big vision, can be super aggressive, and you're going to start radio advertising or TV advertising or billboard advertising, some serious branding beyond direct response at that point. You could see this number on out. You might keep it around 20% to just dominate your market and gain market share. What question we got?
We got a comment and a question.
All right.
Comment from Dana Hassan says, California, the fuel goes up every July 1st, and so does my base price.
Yep.
Caleb Blake says, what is the best way to advertise offline?
Offline advertising, well, to start with, one, online advertising is your greatest, is going to be the best results you're going to have right now. So you need to do all of your, we tell people to do all of your online advertising, your direct response advertising first. Outside of that, we love truck-based marketing because it's stuff that's cheap. It's stuff you can do in your downtime. So all junk removal businesses are going to have times where you're not as busy, especially early on. I mean, it happens in larger companies like Junk Doctors, but when you have 16 trucks running around, if you're down, if you're a little slower and you're down a few trucks, you're still running a bunch of trucks. So you'll notice it early on, and early on you have that's when you have a lot of time to really put out your yard signs, and then just wave at traffic. The door hanger flyers or the sticky notes. Don't always see great results with those, but yard signs you see excellent results on. And the traffic waves, you just set up, get something unique and just set up in a busy intersection with a sign, wave at people going by, and it's amazing the amount of business it brings in. Outside of that, we've done some EDDM through the post office. That's postcard mailers. It's okay. It's nothing spectacular. It pretty much doesn't even pay for itself, but it'll keep the jobs rolling. The other area that we've seen actually decent success on is money mailer, Valpak type stuff. Surprisingly, we actually aren't getting a huge price shopper. The average job in those is similar to what we've seen in other industries or other advertising sources. And it works out decently well. Do you make money on it on the first job? No, probably not. It's probably a break even. So there's a common theme here. A lot of times on the stuff you do outside of your truck-based marketing and your direct response online stuff, you're just looking to maybe break even, knowing that if you break even on those jobs that are coming in, that the 3 R's are going to kick in: the reviews, the referral business, and the repeat customers. And that's kind of what you're going after. Later on, networking works great as you have time and you're not on the truck anymore. Property management companies are number one. Realtors, professional organizers. At that point, it's just a matter of knocking on doors, passing out information, meeting people, and pounding the pavement to build up your business at that point.
Got one more.
Okay.
Dana says, have you tried Groupon lately, and what type of success have you had with it?
Yeah, we haven't used Groupon in years. The last time we used Groupon was fairly new. It was back then. I think Living Social still exists now potentially, but we used to run a Groupon and a Living Social ad. What we found was that it was very, very tough to make money because The model we use with Groupon is that we ran, I think it was $79 for 1/8 of a load. And then we also had a $99 for 1/4 load. So it was like a 50% discount pretty much, or close to it. Well, you discount your services 50%, and then Groupon took about 40%. Now, there is work to be had out there. No doubt about it. We'd sell, I don't know, hundreds. We put out a Groupon between 1/4 and 1/8 of a load. Within a handful of weeks, we probably sold 100 of those things. And people would book sporadically over time. One of the things I didn't like is Groupon went away. The Groupon used to have a model where when you sold them, they would immediately pay you. Well, what happened is they actually started not paying you until the client redeemed it. So you didn't get this big splash of cash. Because what we used to do is come wintertime when it got slow, we'd run a Groupon offer. People would buy up the Groupon offer, we'd get the splash of cash, and most people, or a good portion of people, would not use it until spring. We quit running Groupon offers when they went away from that, when they went to only paying us as it was redeemed. It became much less appealing as a cash flow benefit. As far as how it does now, getting back to your original question, I don't know. We probably haven't run one in 5 years. I would imagine there's still some results out there, but I just know you don't hear people talking about Groupon nearly as much anymore. And I feel like those that do are super, super, super price shoppers. Great question, by the way. Anything else?
We got one from Caleb Blake. He says, what do you think about mailing flyers to certain area codes?
Check out SendJim. SendJim, we have done some select stuff with that. It's cool. The neat thing about SendJim is you can specify exactly what you're looking for in terms of zip codes or clientele or whatever. You can also send stuff to prior clients. It's very, very easy. It's fairly inexpensive. It works if you do it for a long enough period of time. So most of this advertising stuff, if you do it for a long enough period of time, it will work and you do enough of it. Most people struggle with advertising because they go from thing to thing to thing before it can actually kick in and be effective. Identify your target market. Send them regular postcards. Don't just send them once and forget about it. Send them regular postcards and it will work.
Juan from Bay Hauling says, overtime is killing us right now. Still shorthanded. Payroll percentage is about 40%. Sounds like we are way off. Maybe we're paying ourselves too much. 15% of that is owner benefit.
Yeah, so when I talk about payroll too, which is a very, very good, I'm glad you brought that up. This is truck payroll. So truck payroll needs to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 20, 25%. You take your 40%, you less your 15, you're right where you need to be. So overtime, I don't know what if you break out your overtime percentage on your P&L. If you don't, you should. But obviously you want that to be just as low as possible. It's tough right now though. And especially in California, being in California, you have to pay overtime if anybody works longer than 8 hours in one day. To my knowledge, that's the only state in the union, like a lot of things. California is the only state in the union that actually requires that. Maybe there's one or two more I'm not aware of. But most places it's 40 hours. If they work over 40 hours, it's time and a half. It's in California, you can work 10 hours all week, but you work 10 hours in one day and you have to pay 2 hours OT. It's pretty ridiculous, but that's just the way it is there. So you have to work on that best you can. What we got?
Caleb says, final question. How do you charge for demolition jobs?
Well, it depends what kind of demolition you're talking about. So if you're talking about just shed demos and deck demos and stuff that you can just do by hand, which is what the majority of junk removal companies do, we charge the same way we would for anything else. A volume-based rate, but it's limited to 30 minutes per quarter load. So if we're going to do a shed demo job, and it's a full load, but it's bad access, and it's just, we can just tell it's going to be a bear to, take down or whatever like that. We're going to charge, or it is a bear, then it's going to take longer than 2 hours. It might take 3 hours. Well, at that point, you have the full load rate, let's say $600. We charge an hourly rate of $50 per person on anything above those 2 hours for a labor rate. So let's say there's 2 people on that job, takes 3 hours, that's an hour extra, it's additional 100 on there, it'd be $700. And that, we like doing that because it keeps everything uniform. Instead of having a different demolition fee for anything, we just, we keep it all uniform and we stick to the same policy we would on anything else. Now, if you're talking about larger demolition projects that involve bringing in a bobcat or tearing up concrete, if you're doing any of that type of work, any interior demolition, that's going to be priced separately. Generally, at that point, we just look at the scope of the job. We run whatever our expenses are going to be. We throw in the profit margin that we want, and that's the price that we extend out to customers. Great question. All right, if we got any other questions, just feel free to post them in those comment sections. Would love to get to them. All right, so now we've got our P&L numbers right here. Basically, you know you need to raise prices when you're outside of any of these numbers. And it could be, it's also not only outside of any of these numbers, but also where have you been in the past? Has it increased? So if you look back 2, 3, 4 months, a year ago, what was your disposal fee a year ago? If your disposal fee a year ago was 8% and it's 10% now, well, you're within the 8 to 12, but you're higher than where you were. It's time to raise prices. Your fuel cost, same thing. You're just going to look at all of this and make a determination. There is one other part of this that you need to make sure, though. You need to make sure that all money that is being billed, all jobs that you're being billed for, is being collected. You also want to look at your average job sale and your cancellation rate. What you want to ensure is that your team is following the process that they should. They're not underquoting jobs, and they're not stealing from you. So all income that is actually being received is being reported. Those are the things you want to look at. If your average job is off, if you have a team, if you have high, if your prices are set where they are, but your team is consistently underquoting, raising prices isn't really going to change a whole lot. It could potentially scare some customers away, probably not, but it could. And your team is just consistently underquoting. So fix the underquoting part first. The way you recognize that is all of your team using Workies, workies.com/JRA. They've got a great promotion there if you sign up through Workies from the workies.com/JRA link. They're a great partner of ours. We work with them very closely on building up what's a great platform for junk removal in terms of a CRM system and scheduling system. If within that system, one of the things that we had them do that they added because of us all the way around is the option to where you can actually attach pictures to the job. So all of your guys should be taking in the job pictures. You should be looking at that, comparing it to what was quoted and figuring out, hey, are they accurate or not? The other thing you'll look at is time, average time on job. The best way to figure this is, because it actually is going to vary throughout the country depending on the size of people's homes, where a lot of the stuff is. You yourself go out on some jobs with at least one other guy, do several different jobs, time yourself. That gives you your average job time, and then you can kind of make a basis on, half load should take this long, or full load this long, whatever. And if you see that there's some team members that are consistently taking longer, then they could be stealing from you, or they could just be a lot slower. Well, if they're slower, your payroll numbers are going to be higher. So you want to verify that things are being done as they should before you go right into price changes. Once you've done that, then at that point, when it's time to raise your pricing, keep minimum through 1/6. Keep that increase down. One of the first things people are going to look at is that minimum load. The next thing they're going to look at is the full. So try and keep the full under the next 100. So if you're at 595, if you're at 590, maybe go to 595 instead of just jumping to 600. Until you can't anymore. And then once you get to that point, blow through it. And what I mean by that is, if you've been holding off going into the 600 range and all of a sudden it's time to go into the 600 range, don't just go to 605 or 610. If you're at 595, don't just do a $10 increase at that point. Blow that thing up 30 or 40 bucks. Get like 625. Once you cross that 600 threshold, then at that point, mentally, the people are going to, 605, 625, there's not a huge difference there. So blow through it at that point, and then you watch. So after you've done that, monitor these numbers. So if you're at 14%, you're trying to get down to 10%, you could sit there. There is a formula that's going to tell you I need to raise pricing by X amount in order to get this percentage on my disposal fees. The way we've normally approached it is we've tried to make sure that we never get that far out of line on our numbers where we have to make a large increase. You don't want to do a large increase all at once. You don't want to rock the boat too much. But something like, I should add another little point right here. Your middle price points, so that would be, say, your quarter load to, I even say 7/8. So the most of your price points, you might raise $15 to $25, or potentially a percentage. So 15 to 25 seems to be a number. If we're going to raise prices, we normally raise that middle part, 15 to 25. The majority of your jobs are going to be full loads, and then they're going to be like half loads. So if you get that middle part up, you'll be amazed at what it does to your bottom line. And then it's still, to the average consumer, they don't really see a large increase because most of them are looking at the minimum load, they're looking at the full load. Then we got another question?
Island Strong Hauling and Junk Removal says, how do you price dirt and concrete jobs from load prices?
Yeah, so we do bed loads on those, which is pretty standard in the junk removal industry. So it's our exact same pricing, full load, quarter load, half load, 3/4 full, but it's considered to be only up to 1 foot of depth across the bed. So the full load rate at that point is an 8 by 12 by 1 foot depth. And then we just base it on a quarter load of that, a half load of that, 3/4 full.
You got 2 comments on that as well. Garbage World says, with prices going where they're going, you will lose money if you don't raise prices.
Yes.
And John LaBarge says, I price by the cubic yard. I charge $100 per cubic yard plus hourly rate to load. Also remember, dirt doubles in volume when dug up.
Yeah, there's a few different ways of pricing it right there that sounds like it makes sense to me right there as well. Inflation 6% last handful of months since probably the beginning of the year. Probably the beginning of the year. I'll put beginning of the year. If I'm off by a few months, then I am. But we're seeing 6% inflation, which is double the amount of inflation that our economy wants to see. Long term, there's no telling what's going to occur. You know, when we went through this coronavirus, people far smarter than me have no idea what's going to happen here. When you inject, what was it, $3, $4, $6 trillion, I can't remember, into the economy, and you're completely upsetting the balances that exist in a free market economy. And what's going to occur economically, we might not understand until years in the future. Was it right or wrong? Who knows? You know, we avoided an economic depression, which a lot of people were predicting going into it. But the question is, did we simply just delay an economic depression? Nobody really knows. I know right now on our truck stuff, when we're buying steel for trucks, I'm telling people, listen, you get a quote and you better accept within a day or two or that price is going to change. Because every single day, just yesterday, we saw steel future prices going up 5%. That's after like a 10% increase 2 weeks ago. Our hoist costs are going up, our tarp costs are going up, and not just by a little. The hoist, our price that we pay on the hoist went up by $300 last week, so, or 2 weeks ago. So it's building prices. We're looking at building a house right now. Building our house is 20 to 25% more of what it was going to be when we originally got a price a little over a year and a half ago. So just, right before COVID. So there's no telling what's going to occur. Right now, though, everybody's paying increases. So on your end, when your prices go up, you're going to pass it on to the consumer until the consumer no longer wants to pay, and then hopefully everything will just kind of balance out. But weird stuff going on right now. Very, very odd time in our lifetime in the history of this country economically happening. I think there's a lot of people, there's a lot of warning signs out there that we could be running into Hey, we're back. How's our audio there, Matt?
Yeah, time.
Okay. Testing 1, 2.
Go ahead.
How we sound?
Sounds good.
Good?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, we're live.
Yep.
All right, guys. Sorry about that. So we lost our camera there. Price increasing. Don't be afraid to do it. So you're going to be very, very nervous on whether or not you should raise your prices. In all the years we've been doing this, we've never once had any pushback. So we look at our numbers. If the numbers are off, then at that point we just raise pricing. And maybe for a week or two it seems slower. You might just time a down cycle. It seems to happen. You time a down cycle with the time you raise pricing. So if you're not careful, your knee-jerk reaction will be to lower your price. Just hang in there. If you've just done a $15, $20 increase on those core prices, you kind of follow this model right here, and you've got the good reviews, which isn't up there anymore, but you've got good reviews and good reputation. Just hold tight. Give it 2, 3, 4 weeks. See what occurs before you lower those prices. The problem is if you knee-jerk reaction and lower your prices, you'll never want to raise prices again. And any business out there, you have to be able to raise prices in order to keep your margins where you need to be. Why is it so important again to raise pricing? To keep your pricing up? The company that can pay the most in advertising wins, more or less. Pay the most to acquire a customer wins. So what will happen if you don't have enough margin, you're not going to be able to do Google Ads competitively, to do good SEO, to eventually get into radio. I have no idea, what the Blue Man Group pays on radio advertising. I will guarantee you some of these franchises in certain areas, it's hundreds of thousands a year. So we've never done radio advertising in Junk Doctors. We are going to kick it off next year. Right now we'll blow by the $3 million mark with Junk Doctors this year. Our goal, we want to be by the end of 2023, we want to hit 5 million with Junk Doctors. And by the end of 2025, our vision for there is to actually build Junk Doctors up to a $10 million a year business just in the state of North Carolina. We're never going to expand beyond the state of North Carolina because of Junk Removal Authority. So just in the state of NC, we don't offer any services to anybody in NC. We want to build that up to a $10 million a year business. That does include us going into Wilmington and the Asheville, North Carolina market, so those two markets right there, but still staying within NC and expanding out our Raleigh, Charlotte, and Greensboro locations. Part of our big thing is we've maximized direct response. You can't beat us in SEO in these markets. Google Ads, we spend more money than anybody and we rank extremely well. And now we're at the point now we have to continue building up the brand, so we're going to do so through radio, TV, and billboards. And that is some of our key strategy on getting from a $3.5 million a year business to a $10 million a year business over the next handful of years. If we don't have margin, then there's not going to be money there to invest in and do that. Now, it is helpful that at this point, there's enough other businesses bringing in money where we don't have to pull much out of Junk Doctors. We do right now. We nail Junk Doctors for every penny we can squeeze out of it at the moment. But when we go through this hard push to gain market share and to grow aggressively, we can cut back what we're actually taking out, take that profit and put it towards radio, TV advertising and such. That's the kind of stuff you need to do. The other part of this that I just talked about, that's our vision. You need to have a vision. The vision, your destination, where you're going to get, and then you can backfill that. That becomes your roadmap, and you'll see how important it is. Hey, if I want to do this amount of money in this year, I'm going to need this number of trucks. I'm going to need this amount of people. Trucks and people cost money. There has to be margin in there from price increases for me to be able to do those things. What kind of questions we got?
We got 2 good comments. Worker Bees Junk Removal says, great info like always, especially for us newbies.
Good stuff.
Treasure Trove Junk Removal says, love the videos, Lee. I've been very happy since I started using you guys.
Awesome. Glad to have you. Guys, if we got any last questions or comments, please feel free to post them right now. I'm out of material. So the best thing to gain from this, don't be afraid to raise pricing and watch your financial statements. A sophisticated, good business owner is going to consistently look at their financial statements. It doesn't take long, guys. Don't overcomplicate it. Get a P&L every single month from your bookkeeper. Try and get it by day 5 of the next month, or at least day 10. Take a look at what happened and just do a little bit of kind of inspecting and detective work to determine, hey, are my guys doing what they're supposed to be doing? Is there something else going on, or do I simply need to raise pricing? If I need to raise pricing, raise it up. Keep the stuff simple. Try and keep emotion out of it. Don't be scared. As soon as you can figure out how not to be fearful of moves and what you're going to do next, your business is going to explode. I can't tell you exactly how to do that. I'd make decisions and really know what needed to be done, but would hesitate to do them for a long period of time. At some point, you find a way to push through that in time. If you're tough enough, or stick in there or whatever like that, you'll get to the point where that fear won't influence your decisions as much, and that's when you're really gonna accelerate. If I could learn to talk, we could do probably a better job on these shows. All right, we got anything else?
No, that's it.
All right, guys. Hey, appreciate everybody for tuning in. Junk removal marketing. We mentioned marketing before. JRA, we offer a great junk removal marketing package, website, SEO, Google Ads. Call 919-737-7240, success@junkrA.com. Let's get you. You set your vision. Let Jerry help you get to your vision. You build up $1 million a year junk removal business, or a $10 million a year junk removal business. I'm going to bring you on the show. You get to $5 million a year, we're going to bring you on the show and set you up and work real close together. We want to help you however we can. 919-737-7240, success@junkrA.com. We'll see you next week, 12 noon on Tuesdays.
Does this look like you? Always ruining date night with the work call and leaving your partner upset again? Let us take your call so you can get your life back. The JRA Contact Center. Make more money and live a better life.